So I'm having a chat with Alex and Rob of Sports Team. How are you both?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Good.
Yeah, very good, very good. I got back from LA at the weekend, just on holiday,
How's the
but
jet
it was
lag?
very nice. Yeah, not too bad. I was like, I'm 2 days in as well. I was like, right, I'm going to quit vaping, and my eyes hurt so much. I don't know why. That's the only side effect. But I feel like I've got no depth perception anymore.
You'll get through it, I'm sure.
Well,
We'll see. But yeah, you've been busy. You've been slowly releasing music recently. We've been playing a new single of yours called "I'm in Love, Subaru." Tell us a little bit about the single.
I think probably on this album, it's probably the one that's kind of a bit of a statement, bit of a flag in the ground, be like, this is a different sound. This is kind of a different era that we're trying to put together. I think all of us probably felt more like comfortable in the studio, and we felt like we're finally ready to kind of make a record that sounds like this. It's a bit more sort of sonically ambitious and a bit more listenable. Well, I feel like it's the first thing we released that you could kind of show your mum and be like, oh, this is actually nice music, rather than like, oh, he's a bit Marmite, that Alex, isn't he? Kind of thing. Like, there's so I think that's why we wanted to release. It's probably the most different one on this new album. But yeah, I think what it's trying to tap basically is that. Do you ever play Colin McRae Rally as a kid?
No, I didn't. No.
It's like the greatest game, like proper iconic one. And I think it was trying to get into that kind of thing where it's like, okay, get the love for an inanimate object that you can have at that sort of age, like in a not weird way in your teens. But trying to get at that and trying to kind of explore like how stuff gets a bit more complicated as you get older and relationships become a bit more real.
Yeah, for sure. And after this interview, I think we're going to play a new single of yours, which is coming shortly, called Condensation. Tell us a bit about that single as well.
I think that was like, I mean, it's kind of it's probably on the record, like the song we did the longest time ago. But it's been like we went through so many phases, so it's sort of got a honky tonk piano part that our bassist Ollie absolutely hates. He's got this sort of deep seated hatred for all sorts of honky tonk stuff. So when we first tried recording it, we went and worked with Jules Holland, who sort of originally played the first solo in the middle. So there's like hours and hours of recordings of Jules playing it, which sadly never made it onto the final release. But yeah, I guess it's like I mean, I love all the sort of old bands like XTC, and it's kind of got like a kind of prefab Sprout vibe from their Record Process songs. So yeah, I think we're all kind of into it, and it feels like, I guess, on this record, like compared to Subaru, it's a bit more back into that kind of I think on the first couple of records we made like so many tracks that were kind of like based around that thing of, we always played live. We were playing like 150 shows a year in years and things. So everything we were writing was so keyed into that sort of setup. And I think this is probably like one of the 2 or 3 tracks on this record that is most like that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit like, yeah, but we wanted this one to be next because it's kind of for the fans. It's a bit more like what I think they would have expected, something they can sort of go and see at a live gig. I think it's like, well done, like you've been very patient, you've been very mature, listening to Subaru. Like we can still do this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's coming off your third record, Boys These Days, coming out in February next year. How's the sound of this record in comparison to your previous releases?
I think it shows an enormous level of, no, I think it's like a kind of I think it's probably, as Vice was saying before, it's kind of, we compared to the first 2 records, I guess it was kind of moving slightly away from, then we always had that idea that, okay, you're a 6-piece band, so you've got to kind of have that, it's got to kind of sound like that on every song. So you're kind of, on one level, first record, you're kind of cramming in, like everyone's like, okay, it's 2 guitarists, we need to have like 2 guitar solos, and then Ben, the kind of keyboardist, plays percussion, plays keys, plays synth, so all that kind of stuff would happen in the songs. But I think we kind of wound up using that same sort of like vocabulary again and again and again in all the tracks. Whereas this one was a bit more listening to bands like maybe like World Party and going, okay, well maybe sometimes it's kind of the music we were listening to and referencing even if it was like a 6-piece band or a sort of guitar-based project, you're kind of going, okay, fuck it, we don't need to use live drums in this song. We don't necessarily need to have like a guitar solo in this song. We don't necessarily need to have all these things happening at once. So I think it was just slightly freeing up that process and trying to be a bit more, we've done, as you said, we've done like 2 records already. And I think we have sort of 15 to 20 songs from EPs and those records where you're kind of like, you don't want to just fall in the same space of doing, okay, here's like the kind of moshing banger, here's the kind of, mid-tempo Blur style song like Coffee and TV. So I think on this record, we're just like, having a bit more fun with some of the other bands we like and sort of references we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And the sound that you created with this record, was it the sound that you wanted to make, or is it simply just how it turned out in the studio?
So yeah, it's definitely a sound we wanted to make. Definitely, yeah. I think it's like,
I think it's more the because we worked with a different producer on this one than it was a guy called Matthias Tellez, who I guess he's done sort of Girl in Red, and he did that brilliant CMAT album recently. And I guess it's just a very sort of different recording process. So with Burka, we did our first 2 with it was very about kind of playing it live, like getting a take kind of thing, which I think gives you kind of a lot of spirit, and you can do a lot with that, and it's got to work really well for the first 2. And I'd say someone like Matthias is a bit more of like a bit of a sort of a studio producer, like can make stuff sound genuinely the way you want it to sound. And so I'd say this is kind of the studio record rather than the almost played live record. So yeah, it felt like we could go in and be like, okay, with demos, this is how we want it to sound. And he was in an amazing place to deliver like exactly that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, go on, Rob.
So I was going to say, it's kind of like, I always feel like when we flirt around this thing, it kind of winds up to the point where you're going to be like, you're like, oh, what's it like? What's it like? And I'm like, I don't want it to sound like we made our kind of mature studio record, It's like the most fucking boring, like 6-page pull-out in Mojo magazine sort of quote you could ever give. I think it's still like, it's still kind of, I don't think we've gone away.
It's way more fun making a studio record, to be honest. Like I remember going into that vocal booth and just being like, he was like, right, just do it with as much energy as you can. Like, don't worry too much about the notes or anything like that. We'll put them in place. And like, I personally found that like a way more enjoyable experience than trying to sing properly or whatever it is. And I think probably others had that experience as well, where it gave you freedom to kind of try stuff and a bit more ability to like get stuff wrong, to play around.
Yeah, I'm sure. And you get the chance to play these tracks live when you head out on tour in November. I bet you can't wait to be back on the road again.
Oh, it'll be great. Yeah, we're so excited. I mean, it's been sort of probably a couple of years since we've played in the UK, and it's just like we couldn't be looking forward to anything more. Yeah.
And how are you now going to be sorting your playlist out for your set list for the shows now that there's 3 records around?
It's only new material, nothing old at all. Pure unreleased. I think I think it's going to be like, we've done a couple of like little warm-up shows, and I think it's kind of, for us it's always you want to bring out the bangers. We've never quite got to the point where we're going to be like Radiohead, and sort of sit there and refuse to play Creep. Yeah, I think it's sort of the classics,
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'd like to talk about the writing side as well. When it comes to writing, how do tracks normally start off for you guys?
I normally just sort of sit in a room and sort of do the kumbaya phase, the sort of tortured guitar element. But yeah, I think it tends to be kind of, it tends to sort of start, I guess, with like demos and studio riffs and things before. I mean, this record was kind of in the studio. A lot of the bits were coming together. We didn't do as much because we weren't playing live and we weren't like rehearsing every week. Like we're not even rehearsing every week, but just doing sound checks and things. So I guess it was slightly less of that. So less of that process, which in a way was like quite nice, being able to be spontaneous with like how the songs were actually shaped in a studio. Was sort of Yeah, but I mean, there's been like, I guess like Condensation's probably a track that we've had for, I mean, since like 2020 or something. You know, I think that the first version of that, which was in my head like a very kind of sounded like something off Marquee Moon, and is now sort of maybe slightly deviated from that. But yeah, so there's like a couple of tracks on there that are a bit older. But yeah, generally I think with this record it was sort of started. We got a studio down here in Margate. So yeah, a lot of them were kind of demoed up quite fully here, and then before we went across to work with Matthias.
Yeah, and what about the lyrics as well? How easy do you find it to create the lyrics to the music you write?
I think it's quite easy to start it. I find it very hard to finish it. You know, it's very like a sort of process where it's very easy doing the first like 99% of it, and then it's just the little tweaks at the end, which are tricky. But I think it's a funny process because you're kind of like part of the writing process is just sort of trying to sort out your own thoughts, you know, getting your own sort of head in order. So I think it's always a little kind of surprising at the end when it comes together and it's like, oh, okay, there's like a coherence here and there's themes and things. I think it's sort of a yeah, you almost don't want to try and like shape that process too much going into it, you know. You don't want to have too clear an idea of what you want to write about.
Yeah, fair enough. Guys, it's been a pleasure having a catch up with you.
Cheers,
Yeah,
Jim.